Hello, Professor Maniotis and fellow History 101 students. Today I'll be presenting to you Nero, the Evil Emperor. I hope my presentation is both informational and enjoyable to listen to. So, Nero's life before the throne. Nero was born in Antium, Italy, December 15th, 37 AD. Nero's name at birth was actually not Nero, it was Lucius Domitius Anubarbus, and he lived with his much more well-known mother Agrippina and his less-known father named Gnaeus Domitius Anubarbus, who died when Nero was only 3 years old. So the map on the right shows Antium, which is right below Rome and around some other key geographical locations on the country. So Agrippina the Wicked. Agrippina was banished in 39 AD by Emperor Caligula for taking part in a conspiracy to overthrow him. So after Emperor Caligula was assassinated in 41 AD, Agrippina was recalled to the emperor by Emperor Claudius, who she was related to, but only by marriage of family members. This will be important later on in the slides. So after returning to Rome, she went to her sister-in-law's house, Domitia Lepida, who was taking care of Nero for her when she was in exile. She was horrified to find the conditions that her son and future emperor were living in at the time. So some more on Agrippina the Wicked. After she got her son Nero back, the quest for the throne had begun. So most of Agrippina's possessions while she was in exile had been given away, and what had been given to her son Nero were mostly given away as well by Lepida. But with the help of Emperor Claudius, they were able to get back some of their possessions. But in order for Agrippina's scheme to get her son on the throne to work, she would need more riches and resources. She devised a plan. She had another stepsister who was also named Domitia, as a family name at the time, who was married to a very rich Pasinius Crypsis. Her plan from there was very simple. She would have him get divorced and would then marry Crypsis herself. She then waited for him to die so that he would give her all of his riches when he died. So tensions in the kingdom begin to grow. A new problem arose when Emperor Claudius had a son named Britannicus, who was now the heir to the throne since he was his birth son. The hatred between Agrippina and Empress Meslania grew over time until one of them finally made a move on the other by Meslania sending a group of assassins to kill Nero in his sleep, but they were chased off by a nurse or Agrippina herself. The reason there is such a tension between the two is because Meslania sensed that Agrippina wanted to get Nero on the throne instead of her own son, Britannicus, so that's why Meslania tried to kill Nero. So, another interesting fact that I found through my research is that Nero had a snake skin under his pillow. That was considered a good luck charm, and his mother and the nurse both believe that's one of the main reasons he survived. Nero would later have the snake skin infused with gold when he was emperor and have it turned into an anklet that he would wear. So, trouble in the kingdom. In 48 AD, Claudius's promiscuous wife, Meslania, attempted a government coup against him, trying to get her latest lover into power. He was named Gaius Salilius. So after the coup attempted by Meslania and Gaius failed, Emperor Claudius ordered Gaius to be executed, and shortly after, Meslania killed herself. Meslania chose to kill herself over being executed because her death that way would be much faster and less painful than what her husband had planned for her. Claudius, after this, stated that he would never get married again and would leave his son Britannicus to inherit the throne. A few short months later, Britannicus would go back on his word and marry his niece Agrippina. Like I mentioned before, they were not related through blood, only through other relatives being married. So, heirs to the throne. After Claudius had married Agrippina, there was a new possible heir to the throne, Nero. So Claudius decided to adopt Nero after marrying Agrippina. He now had his connection to the throne that he needed in order to become emperor. So taking out the competition, Britannicus has become the main competitor to Nero for the throne of Rome. With Britannicus still in the picture and rapidly approaching the age of maturity in Rome, which was 14 at the time, Agrippina had to find a way for Nero to take the throne and fast. So Agrippina arranged for Nero to marry Claudius's daughter, Octavia, even though Claudius had already pledged her to marry another man named Lucius Silanus. So Agrippina came up with a plan to show incest between Lucius and his sister, Julia Calvina. The scheme was cruel, but it worked for Claudius to call off the wedding, which is what Agrippina intended all along. So now Nero must prepare for the throne. With Nero now set to marry Emperor Claudius's daughter and his stepsister Octavia, there were only a few things left to do before he could take the throne. Before Nero could become emperor of Rome, he would have to receive an education fit for an emperor. Agrippina was able to convince her husband and Emperor Claudius to recall the famous scholar and his pupils from exile to tutor Nero. So, after being adopted by Claudius and receiving the tutoring from Seneca, Nero received the toga aurilis. He received these 3 years early at the age of 14, when they would normally be given out at the age of 17. Now Nero was able to participate in political discussions with his father, the emperor, and the Senate. This will be important to remember on the next slide. So, further preparing for the throne. After being adopted by Claudius and being given the robes, Nero would gain precedence and favor over his rival for the throne, Britannicus. With Nero now being in favor with the emperor, Agrippina took the opportunity to say that Britannicus was being rude in his meetings with the now favorite son Nero. Claudius harshly acted by executing or exiling all of Britannicus' tutors and having his stepmother Agrippina choose new ones for him. The next step in Agrippina's plan was to gain the favor of the Praetorian Guard. They, however, still favored Britannicus because of their loyalty to his mother, Mislania, so this would be no easy task for Agrippina. So, gaining favor of the Guard. Agrippina's plan was to pit the two powerful leaders against each other. So, the commanders were named Lucius Geta and Rufrius Crispinus. So, she employed one of the Guard's members who were hungry for more power in the Guard. He was a brilliant man. His name was Burrus Alfrinus. So, after pitting the Guard against each other and getting them on Agrippina's side, and Burrus becoming leader, he owed his leadership to Agrippina and was now in her debt. So, taking care of loose ends, with the Praetorian Guard now on Nero and Agrippina's side, there were only two things left to do before Nero could take the throne. So, Agrippina's sister in law, who watched over Nero while he was in exile, Lepida, saw that Nero would soon take over the throne of Rome and decided it was time for her to re enter the soon to be emperor's life. Agrippina did not like this, that she might lose the favor of her son, and accused Lepida of witchcraft. She would be executed soon after the allegations came out against her. So, taking the throne, now with Nero being of age and all competition out of the way, it was time to kill the emperor and have Nero take the throne. However, this would be no easy task, but the wicked Agrippina had a surefire plan to kill her husband, the Emperor Claudius. Nero and Agrippina enlisted the help of a poison master named Ocesta, who would poison a dish of wild mushrooms, which was one of Emperor Claudius's favorite meals at a royal dinner. However, the poison was slow working, and Agrippina feared that her husband would recover before the poison could kill him, and he would then know that he was poisoned and would act against Agrippina and Nero. So she enlisted the help of a famous physician named Xenophon, who put a fast working poison onto a feather and put it in the emperor's mouth, which would kill him soon after. However, he did not say that the feather was covered in poison. He said that the feather would make the emperor throw up and make him heal faster. After ingesting the poison, the emperor would die soon after. So, Emperor Nero. With Nero not being emperor of Rome, there was something he could do that he could never do before, and that was he could do whatever he wanted without the consent or approval of his mother. Giving Nero this power would be one of Agrippina's gravest mistakes during her time on Earth. So, now acting as emperor, when Nero first became emperor, he was not interested in any sort of constitutional reform. He was content to show clemency and moderation. He wanted these to be the keynotes of his regime, but however, the new emperor would soon grow tired of his wife Octavia, who he was arranged to marry only for his mother's political scheme and had no love or children with. Nero would start to have relationships with a young Asian slave girl named Act. So, more information about this relationship. It wasn't uncommon for an emperor to have relationships with a slave or someone of lesser status. Nero would take counsel with two men, his friends Otho, who's a future emperor himself, and Seneca, who would actually take part and plan to plot and against and kill Nero. His friends, however, would encourage the relationship since it affected no one important, and Octavia did not care because it was less attention than that Nero would give her because she did not love him. However, there is one person that did care about the relationship, Agrippina. So once Agrippina discovered her son's relationship with the slave, she knew she must win her son's favor back before it was lost forever to his new lover. Her first attempt to win her son's favor back was abuse. This obviously did not work for many reasons. One of the main ones being the more violent that Agrippina got, the more that Nero would go to act for comfort and support during that rough time for him. Seneca would soon step in and try to distract Ak and take her away from Nero. However, this did not work as well. The second attempt from Agrippina was showing flattery and love to her son like she never had before. She would invite him up to her royal estate and shower him in gifts, trying to win back the favor of the young emperor. This did work for a while until Nero's elders and advisors saw what Agrippina was doing and told Nero that he was being used again. Nero did not like this and was enraged. His retaliation would not be violent. Instead, he would send his mother's gifts, showing how much she was truly missing out on without being next to her son on the throne. So threats would soon be made against Nero. Agrippina was upset that her son no longer listened to her, and she looked for a new person to control on the throne. She found the perfect candidate in Britannicus, the birth son of the former emperor Claudius. Soon Nero began to hear the rumors that there was a new rival for the throne, so he made a plan of his own against his mother. Nero and his yes men devised a plan to poison Britannicus at an imperial dinner, much like his father. So the first attempt to poison Britannicus was a failure. The poison was too weak and it passed normally. Nero was very upset by this and would not fail again. This time, Nero enlisted the help once again of the poison master Locesta, who was in jail for the murder of former Emperor Claudius. This time, Nero made a much more powerful poison blend, and the plan was to put it in Britannicus's wine instead of food, because the food after the incident with Emperor Claudius was all tasted by poison testers. So Nero handed Britannicus a cup of boiling hot wine, which after Britannicus drank, he burnt his mouth and asked for it to be cooled. They would add cold water that was mixed with the poison, and once Britannicus drank the cooled liquid, he would die soon after. So, aftermath of Britannicus' death. With Britannicus collapsing at the table, Nero defended himself, claiming that it must have been one of his epileptic fits that he was prone to. Octavia, however, knew this was not true and watched Nero for any signs of being upset and saw that there were none, but knew she must not say anything or she could be the next in Nero's victims. So Agrippina, however, did know what her son was up to, unlike many people in the Roman Empire, and was shocked to see that her last hope to control her son had died before her. This made her see how ruthless her son had become away from her, and that and she knew that she could be his next victim. So the table quickly returned to dinner and banter. A funeral had already been planned. It was customary in Roman culture to have a smaller funeral for someone that had died before their time when they were still young. So when they were walking Britannicus's body through the town, it was covered with gypsum to cover the whiteness of his body, which is a telltale sign that someone had been poisoned. But it began to rain when they were walking out Britannicus's body, and the colored gypsum washed off his body, revealing his pale white skin, confirming what everyone had believed that Britannicus has been poisoned, and it was most likely by the Emperor Nero himself. So Agrippina realized that she was now powerless, and that she had no more chance to control her son anymore or have any power in the Roman Empire. So she also realized, and so did Nero, that they could no longer coexist. Agrippina was at the mercy of her son that she taught how to kill and be ruthless. She created a true monster for the Roman Empire. Nero wanted his mother to feel supportless and took away her military guard that she was entitled to and exiled her to live in a country house that was locked down by guards at all times. So Agrippina's friends soon began to leave her. She had no one left, no one to talk to, and was truly powerless. However, she still had one friend that would visit Agrippina. Her name was Junia Selena, but this was to only serve her own plans of revenge. She planned to accuse Agrippina of a plot to overthrow her son with another possible competitor named Rulius Platous. They told Paris, who Nero frequently talked to and trusted, about the plan, and Paris told Nero at possibly the worst time, late at night, when he has drank many cups of wine. Nero was angry and planned to kill his mother after hearing the plans. He also planned to kill everyone involved. However, there was a voice of reason. It came in the form of the Proletarian Guard leader, Platous. Because he was still in Nero's mother's favor, he wanted to save her and also save himself from being involved in the plan. Pyrrhus was able to convince Nero of his undying loyalty as well as his mother to be innocent. However, Nero did say that if he found out that Pyrrhus was lying, he would have to kill Agrippina himself. Calm times. Agrippina still had hope for her son after he decided to not kill her for the plan that she was accused of. After this, the next 3 or so years in the kingdom were come, with no major events happening for a few years. Octavia the Unloved. So Octavia was the only daughter of former Emperor Claudius, and she was married to Nero for a political scheme, a marriage that was arranged with no love and bared no children. Nero always had other lovers in his life when married to Octavia. First was the Slave Act, and then Act was soon replaced by Poppaea Sabina. Nero wished to marry Sabina, but there were two things standing in his way: his wife Octavia and his mother Agrippina. Poppaea believed that Nero was only still married to Octavia because he was still controlled in his mother by a way, so he devised a plan to kill his mother. Agrippina's death. Agrippina was a strong woman, so it would not be easy to kill her. It took a total of 3 attempts to kill her. First, they tried to poison her, but she was able to survive the poisoning and recover. Next, she was sent out onto a faulty ship that would break apart at sea. And with not many Romans being able to swim, Nero thought for sure that his mother would perish. But she was somehow able to make it to shore, where his third attempt would be the final one, with sending Antiochus, who was a commander of a Roman fleet, to kill her herself. One interesting yet gruesome fact I found in my research was that Agrippina wished for her to be stabbed and killed through her womb, which she had carried Nero in because she felt betrayed by her own son. Agrippina died in 59 AD, living from 15 AD to 59 AD. So now the only thing standing in the way of them getting married was getting rid of Octavia. Poppaea, soon after the death of Agrippina, became pregnant, and Nero then divorced Octavia. Nero and Pompeia would get married just 12 days after the divorce, and they would be married in 62 AD. Octavia was banished after to the island of Pandaria with a false charge of adultery against her. Octavia was liked by the Roman Empire, and the citizens began to riot soon after her departure. Nero decided that exile was not enough and ordered Octavia to be executed by cutting her veins open and bleeding out. She was then placed into a boiling hot bath where she would die. And after she died, Nero would cut off her head and give it to Poppaea as a gift of his love to her. So Nero's love for theater. Nero, not having all the power to himself and no one to stop him, could truly do what he wanted. Nero always had a love for art and loved to perform himself. Roman citizens laughed at the idea of their emperor, who was supposed to be strong, performing art acts. Nero, however, did not care and would lock these citizens into theaters, forcing them to listen to him for as long as he seemed fit. Some citizens, however, would fake their deaths so that they could be carried out of the theaters, so that they would no longer have to listen to their emperor sing. So, stealing from the poor. The emperor used to disguise himself and sneak out at night, beating people, and then stealing their possessions and auctioning them off to the highest bidder. He would also sneak off into people's businesses, steal from them to also sell the goods to the highest bidder. However, one night Nero did have someone fight back against him, and he was beaten to the point where he nearly died. Afterward, it came out that it was the emperor himself stealing from businesses and people. Gangs would form at night, fighting and stealing from shops all across the empire and causing chaos. It was said that Rome was like a city that had been seized by the enemy. So, one of Nero's most famous acts, the fire of Rome, the burning of Rome. The fire was huge, lasting for 6 days and burning down 10 of Rome's 14 districts. Many people believed that Nero had started the fire, but however, this for a fact was not true because he was 30 miles away at his estate in Antium. When Nero heard of the fire, however, he did rush back to lead relief efforts by opening his garden to people for food and shelter and helping fight the fire. However, no good deed could last, and soon after the fire had been extinguished, he began construction of a new palace. Many people also believed that Nero had started the fire. I could not find any surefire evidence that he had or hadn't started the fire. Some sources said he did, but some also said that people were just saying Nero started the fire because he was a hated emperor already. So I was not for sure either way. So the Golden House, also known as Domus Aurora, was a true architectural masterpiece, a palace truly fit for Emperor Nero. Nero, soon after the fire, would begin construction of his new palace instead of trying to rebuild the empire. And with the help of the grand architects and engineers Seller and Service, the palace would truly be magnificent. The palace would include a lake in the front that would host plays and battles for Nero and his friends to enjoy. The palace would also feature gold rooms, ceilings, and over 100 rooms. Also, at the grand entrance, there is a 30-meter statue of Nero. The property would expand for over 100 acres and cut into the people's lands, decreasing the amount of agricultural land in Rome and hurting the economy. So, assigning blame for the fire. The emperor would need to blame someone for the fires, and he had the perfect candidate, a new religious group quickly beginning to grow that was called the Christians. With Nero's orders, the Christians would be tortured in the worst way possible for their crimes, including being whipped, dressed as wild animals, being fed to wild dogs, being crucified in his garden, and being covered in wax and being used as candles at his dinner parties. In the image to the right, you can see people being whipped, being burnt alive, and being crucified in his garden. It is truly one of the most wicked things that Nero did as emperor. This, however, I believe may be worse. So, as we know, Nero is extremely ruthless and unstable. His wife, Poppaea, would complain to him about spending too much time at the theaters, and he would kick her and his child that she was pregnant with to death in 65 AD. So, Roman poverty. With the emperor trying to finish the building of his new palace, the empire would be taxed extremely heavily, putting them into economic distress. Nero would increase taxes on all wage classes and seize all valuables from any temples that he could find. To fund the building of his new palace, he would also devalue the cost of weight and price of silver in the city, making it easier for him to obtain. The city would begin to riot and plot against the emperor. The end of the Roman era. In the year 68 AD, the Roman Empire would grow tired of the cruel emperor and rise against him. The first person to rise against Nero was Gaius Julius Vindex, who was a governor in Gaul at the time. Nero did not see Gaul as a threat, stating that I have only to appear and sing to have more peace once more in Gaul, he declared. Another governor would soon rise with Vindex. His name was Servius Sulpius Galba, out of northern Spain, and he would declare himself the new emperor of Rome. Nero would soon be named public enemy number one by the Senate. Once the Praetorian Guard abandoned him, he knew his days were numbered and that he would soon die. So in 69 AD would be Nero's last year to live. He would order his few remaining subjects to dig him a grave where he would kill himself, with his last words being, "Oh, what an artist dies in me." I feel like his last line truly illustrates how terrible of a person and emperor that he would be, not asking for forgiveness for anything that he had done or even thinking about what he had done, all the lives that he had taken. in the empire that he had ruined, being one of the worst Roman empires ever. And so this is my works cited page for my sources, my two books being sorted alphabetically. And then these are all for my pictures that I had. And that is the end of my slide. Thank you for watching. I hope it was both educational and enjoyable.